Hi everyone, it's Pete here. Let me readjust my thing because it's pointing in the wrong direction. Well, uh, today is like a last minute thing. This has been a rush to get something out of my head and my heart to be able to chat to you about. Just in case there's anyone new, my name's Pete. I'm the minor canon for young people. And what I'm going to talk about today is mental health. I know I did a talk on suicide a bit ago, but today I've had a real up close and personal brush with our mental health system. And I've just struck as we go into a period of sort of extended restrictions and potential local lockdowns, the nature that is an impact that's going to have on individuals who are having difficulties with their mental health, particularly individuals who suffer with complex mental health, and how they can access support around them. Because we've seen statistics coming out over the months of lockdown and over the months since where we've sort of been edging into society again, of the increasing prevalence of people suffering with mental health issues because of isolation, because of lack of support. In fact, the Office of National Statistics in August said that the rates of depression had doubled during lockdown. I mean, it is something that's so prevalent and something that's going to keep going on and on and on. And I think we're only seeing the very tip of the iceberg. It absolutely breaks my heart to see so many people really struggling, not knowing where to reach out to. And in fact, when they reach out, maybe not being able to access support in the way that they would hope. Today, I was helping someone who was having a real issue with their mental health, and we were desperately trying to access support. And we got in touch with different people, and we were trying to access a GP surgery, but because of all the COVID stuff and restrictions, we just couldn't get access to what we needed to in the normal way that you might expect in the normal thing. And really, it left us with no options available to us except to go to A&E or potentially call the police, where you can end up in a police cell because of your mental health issues as a place of safety. Now, I don't know about you. I've had experience in my life of being in A&E and actually of being in police cells. Don't panic, I wasn't being locked up, but I've been in and around these environments, and they are not the most therapeutic environments you will ever come across. They're not even the best sticking plaster environments you would come across. You know, some people I've seen with mental health issues who get put in a cell for their own safety. Yes, it keeps them safe, but in effect it's re-traumatizing them, and it's having a significant impact as they try to access support later down the line. It is so complicated, and it's compounded by seeing our NHS and mental health organisations overstretched, under resourced. I was reading an article from the charity Mind. It was just listing a catalogue of how our mental health services are just overstretched. Now, before you think this is an NHS battering, this really isn't. We have so many amazing, dedicated, glorious human beings working in our NHS. They are doing a fantastic job, often not with the resources that they would need or want to do the best that they could be, and do the best that they could. But it is a system that is critically overloaded, critically overstretched, with issues of access and issues when you get access to the provision that's available, long waiting lists, and poor points of access. You will just find huge numbers of reports on this topic, so I won't go on about it for loads. But just do this for me for a second. Imagine, well, when in a time before the pandemic, how complicated it would have been accessing. Imagine now in a time of the pandemic where things have changed, how hard it is accessing. Imagine that you are in a position where maybe you are struggling with your mental health. Everything seems to be clouding in. Everything's really difficult. You're not quite processing things in the way you might normally expect. Things are really hard. Maybe anxiety's rising. Maybe you're struggling to get out of the door. I don't know. Just imagine yourself in that position of real difficulty where you're desperate to access help, where it's complicated and you're thinking, okay, I have to go to the doctor, or I have to access a crisis team, or someone else. But then you find yourself butting up against the added layer of complication of our COVID policies, which are needed, but do put a big barrier in the way to people accessing support. Appointment systems, masks, temperature checks, not being able just to walk in and wait to see someone. It can be completely overwhelming and scary. It can be absolutely full on. And if you're in that position where you are desperate and you don't know which way to turn, it can just feel like too much to go through, too much to step over to get into the provision you need. Now, we do need to support our NHS workers, because they are the people day in, day out who save lives, who work with people, who compassionately embrace people to try and help them get themselves into a place where they feel their well-being can support them into their lives moving forwards. But we also need to be people who are championing the cause of those who are in need of support, or in need generally, or in danger of being overlooked because of the priorities of society. We have to rise up and champion those individuals. Many of you will be familiar, and it's an easy passage to reach from in scripture, but many of you will be familiar with the passage, the parable that Jesus told of the Good Samaritan, where there's a man beaten and hurting in a road by robbers and thieves on one side, and the first person, a priest, comes past and he looks at him and he walks to the other side of the road and goes on by. Second person, a worshipper in the temple, these people who should know better, looks at the person down and out, walks onto the other side of the road, walks on by. And then there's a Samaritan who sees the person's need and goes and helps them, even though actually socially that is a really risky thing to do. Now, I think that we need to grab hold of some of that narrative in this situation, because at some point in our lives with coronavirus, as it's around for a time, we have to stop purely being driven by fear. We have to be careful, yes, but we have to stop being purely driven by fear, and we have to balance the risk in life with our shared humanity and human interactions. We need to balance it with dignity. We need to balance it with empathy. And we have to see how those things, even though they live in a complicated tension, that those things can coexist, that we are managing the risk of a horrible disease, but also managing the prevalent risks of depression, of anxiety, of complex mental health issues. Because there are so many people struggling in our communities, people struggling in our country, people struggling in our world. So what do we do? Well, when we think about it in those terms, we can be completely overwhelmed. But I think we have to start somewhere. And a bit like the Samaritan on the road, my suggestion is that we start with the one. We have our eyes open to the needs around us, and we respond to the needs of the one. And if each of us does that, our eyes are open to the differing needs in the world, and each of us are engaging and supporting others, and will be able to tell people's story in a compassionate and powerful way, advocating for them. Jesus invested in the one, and it changed the world. It changed people's lives. I suggest that we do the same, that we come alongside people and we come alongside the one. We see need and we have to respond to it. This is a critical time where the restrictions have been extended, But if we have our eyes open, we will see need and we'll be able to advocate on people's behalf. We'll be able to advocate for those who are hurting around us. I can't convey to you how angry I was today at the situation I found myself in. I've tried to temper my anger for this live stream video, but sometimes we need that righteous anger, that anger of justice to rise up within us to do something. So I encourage you, make your voice heard. Stand up for those who may struggle to be heard themselves, so that we might see change in society. God bless. Catch you again soon.